Hello everyone, it is UFC Baku prediction time, preview time, and all that jazz. Let's get on with it. I will give the usual breakdown here. Yes, I bet on fights. Yes, I'm giving information that could lead to betting on fights vis-a-vis the odds and who I think is going to win. But I do fundamentally believe that betting is something that is a little bit of extra spice in life and is not a path to actually making financial freedom type money. I laugh at anyone who's like, I put 50 G's on this fight. Don't do that. Thank you. And do not blame me if you lose money on it. There you go. So this is the Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. fight card. And it's a pretty good one, actually. The main card is, I think, actually quite excellent. The preliminary card, that's a bit of a different story. That's got some rough spots there. There's only like 2 fights on the prelim card that I'm really looking forward to. And one of those is purely because I'm a big Jung Young Park fan. And that kind of leaves like one actually really interesting fight down there. But the main card is well matched. And generally speaking, outside of Blades Kuniev, makes total sense from both an entertainment standpoint and also an intricate like ideas of how to ask questions of fighters. So, overall, I got to give it 2 thumbs up. Put Ulanbekov versus Maxim on the main card, get rid of Kuniev Blades, and we would have like, That would be an amazing main card. But otherwise, yeah, it's really, really solid. So the main event, Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill, 2 guys who have fought for the title. Hill even won the title. 2 of the top 10 guys at 205, pretty much in the world per Tapology. They're number 6 and number 7. And Roundtree is probably at the zenith of his height here. He had that fight with Alex Pereira for the title that actually saw him be rather competitive, like kind of surprising. A lot of people thought he was not going to be able to do much. And I was kind of one of those. I was like, is there really anything Roundtree does well that can like really give Pereira troubles? And the answer was yes. He eventually figured him out because Roundtree is very wooden, very route as a fighter because he goes out there and he has an idea and there's not a lot of progression, adaptation, or anything like that as he's fighting. He's going to try to continue to apply the same game plan, and if you can adapt to that game plan, you can diffuse it pretty well. So what does Roundtree have going for him? He is quite athletic. He is a hard hitter. He is a pretty good technical striker. Like, the form is very, very good. Like I said, the only real problem he has as a striker is the fact that he can be figured out. And I also do think that there is a little bit of a durability question. It has to be said that every time he's faced a big hitter, with like a couple of exceptions, but like, you know, he has been knocked out by Alex Pereira. He has been finished by Ian Kutalaba. He has been knocked out by Johnny Walker. And there is no shame in that. No shame whatsoever. But it does cast an issue of the durability on the matter. Because there's not a fight that really goes against that. Like, the biggest hitters that he has beaten is like Chris Daukaus, who is himself an absolute glass cannon. But other than that, it's Carl Roberson, I guess Modestus Bukauskas? Maybe? I guess? And that does obviously worry me going into a fight with Jamal Hill. And there's also this nature versus nurture thing going on with this one. Roundtree is the nurture, I should say. The guy who has actually been schooled reasonably well, has taken some weird turns in that development, and like I said, has a fundamental lack of adaptation in his fights, which does worry me, but there is like a game plan, a solid fundamentals, technical striking, etc. And then with Hill, you have this born fighter. This guy who is no one's textbook idea of a good fighter, but he's huge. He's durable. He hits hard. He's fast. He has god-awful footwork. And like, even down to like the form of his stance, everything is not really correct. But he gets in there and he does things. He gets in there and he adapts to the chaos of the fight really well. And hits people really, really hard with those adaptations. The ability to find something to make it work. That inherent capability of scrappiness, confidence, bully mentality to a certain degree. And the knowledge that he has the physicality to back that up against basically anybody in the world, with very, very, very few exceptions. It leads to him being a very, very dangerous fighter. And like, there's a reason he won the belt. So I am going to go with Jamal Hill here. I think Roundtree is going to give him some problems early on because I think he's going to have the better game plan. I think he's going to see that Hill is very low kickable because he keeps his legs locked and so on. It's all wrong. The stance is very bad. Roundtree is going to have that success, but at some point over a 5-round fight, we're going to break down the way that 205 fights generally do break down, where we're going to get to that moment where there is chaos, there is havoc, there is the point where the technique matters less than the ability to just find what you're looking for to finish a fight. And that is why I'm going to go with Jamal Hill. I don't like going with that because that's always, that I think that going back to the betting thing, that is the inherent nature of a fight being really, really unpredictable, is the fact that that does happen, that there is that aspect, that unpredictability, that chaos, that inherent thing that is hard to really train into somebody. And that's why I'm going with Hill. Roundtree is the favorite at minus 115 and minus 130. You have Hill at minus 107 to plus 110. That's a bettable line. I'll be putting a little bit on Jamal Hill. And then down to the co-main again, we have the man of many nations because he is born in Kazakhstan, lived in Kyrgyzstan, lives in Thailand now, represents Azerbaijan. And there's a whole story as to how we get to that. But it's Rafael Fiziev versus Ignacio Bahamondes, 155-pound co-main event fight. Comic height differences here of 7 inches, 5'8" to 6'3". And the reach is a little bit closer together. Fiziev always has had a very long reach for a guy of his height, obviously. 71.5 inches versus Bahamondes is 73.5. Bahamondes does not have a long reach for a 6'3 guy. And this is an interesting fight. It's a fun fight, but it does feel like something I've kind of seen before with Bahamondes fights. And that's the Ludovic Klein fight, the Sejan McDessie fight. When Bahamondes went out there against much shorter guys, but very competent, very clean, very technical long-range strikers. Guys who could punish entries into the pocket, even with the height disadvantage, and could make use of the fact that Bahamondes, it's been getting better, but Bahamondes' defensive striking is still very much it's a work in progress. It's a liability to this day. And that is why I've got to pick Fiziev here. Does Bahamondes have the right ideas? I think we're seeing a lot of improvements vis-a-vis the Christos Giagos fight and also the fight with Juan Manuel the Torres that he fought. And now I'm, of course, blanking on which one that was. I'm sorry. Manuel Torres. There we go. Manuel Torres, who he beat on this little winning streak that he's got going here. There were more ideas of how to utilize his reach and how to be a long fighter. But I think the problem with Bahamondes is that fundamentally he likes to fall into the pocket. Fundamentally he likes to go to war. And as a result of that, there are defensive liabilities that can be exploited by a talented striker, even one that is notably shorter than him. So that is why I'm going with Fiziev. Now, is there a concern with that with Fiziev? Absolutely. It's on the table. It's a worry. He's coming back from not his return fight, but obviously he had that fight with Gaethje before this, but like before that there was the Gamrot knee blowout, etc. He has not won since coming back from that knee injury. He is on a 3-fight losing streak. There is always some ideas of like, where is he mentally? Where is he physically? What is the issues? There were some problems in the Gaethje fight. He's had a historical cardio issue as well, but this does feel like it feels like there is a blueprint for him to utilize to win this fight that is on there and that Bahamondes to date has not solved. Yes, he looked more dedicated to being a bit more range capable against Torres and against Giagos. Giagos is like a really bad striker. Not a really bad striker, but not a good striker. And then Torres is a reckless striker So as a result, I don't really think that means much. It means to me that Bahamondes has the right ideas and his coaches are trying to build a more comprehensive and utilizing his natural gifts style. And I appreciate that, and I want that, and I love that. I'm here for that. And he's also a dangerous grappler, as shown in the JL and Turner fight. But there are fundamental things that he is not very good at, and is yet to prove that he can overcome that mentality, that default setting against a good striker. So, like a good technical striker, a guy who isn't just a hard hitter, isn't just a guy who thrives on physical gifts, but who thrives on the comprehensive striking technical game. And that is Fiziev. So Rafael Fiziev is the pick. I've got him by decision. There is a possible stoppage, obviously, for both sides. There is a lot of options. I would actually be really, really happy to be wrong here and have Bahamondes win this fight. As long as he wins this fight in a manner that doesn't make me just go, well, Fiziev isn't all that good anymore, and his leg being obliterated has put him behind the 8 ball in a way that he can't really recover, because that means that we've lost Fiziev is an interesting thing. But like if Fiziev goes out there, he looks good, he looks like still the Fiziev, and he loses to Bahamondes, that would be great, because that means Ignacio Bahamondes is like actually going places, because there, like I said, there is the ingredients, the bare bones of a very, very good, very elite fighter is there. There isn't a physical limitation. There's the size, there's a surprising amount of coordination, there's speed, there's power, there's dynamicism. It's all there, and it just has to be kind of unlocked. So that would be very, very cool, but I can't pick it. Betting wise, surprisingly enough, Fiziev is the underdog at plus 100 to plus 110. I will be betting on that. Minus 125 to minus 134. Bahamondes is also a bettable line. That being said, I am legitimately surprised by that a little bit. I guess not. We are talking about a 3-fight losing streak Fiziev, but yeah, I think that's the wrong underdog here. Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev is a fight that I have broken down before because it was booked twice before, fell apart once, and I think it was rebooked once, and we're here. I'll quickly re-summarize this. Is Kuniev a decent heavyweight prospect? Sure. He's got decent enough size. He's 32 years old, which at heavyweight is actually still a couple years left of development time, almost. And he's reasonably good all around. He can strike, he can grapple, he can wrestle, he can defend. There's like more of a defensive acumen and default to him than most heavyweights that come in. But Curtis Blades is a guy who loses to the absolute best. We're talking Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou, or the absolute, biggest hitters in the world in Derek Lewis. And Kuniev is not any of those things. Kuniev invites wrestling in a way that shouldn't be allowed to beat Curtis Blades. There is a willingness to fight at a range and in a manner and at a pace that really does involve that could open the doors for wrestling. And then just as a striker, don't get me wrong, Blades' striking is frustrating because it's so divorced from his wrestling, and it often gets him caught because he'll have that hitch, that change from like, all right, I kind of want to wrestle now, and then he's just wide open to getting blasted. But I just don't think Kuniev has the speed, the explosiveness, the power to really do that. So, there should be a path to victory pretty easily here for Curtis Blades. So, Blades is the favorite, minus 250 to minus 295, plus 200 to plus 220 on Kuniev. I will say, I don't have a problem with those odds, but, looking at some of the odds elsewhere on this card, as far as, favorites, Nazim Sadikov is a larger favorite on this card. Who else is a larger favorite here? Oban Elliott is a massive favorite on this card. And further on down, there's favorites like Tadger Ulanbekov, and even to a certain degree, you can get this with Melissa Mullins and Irina Alexieva. It does feel like Blade should be a larger favorite here. So again, that's a bettable one. So I guess that's also part of why I like this card, is there's a lot of bettability for me. And I'll be spreading around the bets, so that means that there's no great center place that I could fail. Tufik Musayev versus... I can never say his name. Mitkabik Oralbai. Oralbai versus Tofik. We'll just go with that. So I am picking Tofik to win his UFC debut here. He's a pot-shotting heavy guy who has good wrestling, pretty good striking. Offensive and defensive wrestling are actually really solid. Now, the big question is, and this is always happens when we get somebody coming in from Ryzen or Bellator, less about Bellator, but Ryzen, the UFC and the American scene in general has a pace and size thing that isn't really replicated a lot of other places in the world. We see this a lot with, Japanese fighters coming in and suddenly being very, very small. We see this with even fighters from places like Africa with their like really good athletic backgrounds, but they get overwhelmed by the fact that it's like, yeah, you are more athletic and you hit hard at this guy, and he's just going to keep coming and put the pressure on. And like that is Oralbai in a nutshell. Oralbai is big for a lightweight. He is tough, he's very, very durable. He is insanely durable. And he will wrestle nonstop and strike nonstop. He will be on you like a bad rash the entire fight. And Musayev has the skill set to fend that off. Like I said, he can defensively wrestle. He can hit very hard. Oralbai, the reason we know he's so tough is that there is a lot of defensive holes in his game, a lot of ability to punish him for being very, very open. And to a degree, that's not even a technical failing. It's like if you're going to fight like him, you're going to leave openings because that kind of hyper-active, hyper-aggressive fighting style is going to, just by its nature, leave a lot of like chances to punish someone back. And that's why I got to go with Musayev. Now, part of me is also like, I really hope this because Musayev he fought in Bellator for a hot second, obviously fought in Ryzen predominantly from about 2018 to 2023. I have it listed here. I should just look at it. Yeah, 18 to 23. I don't want that kind of transplant again to lose, I guess in a nutshell, because every time it happens, there's like this complete lack of context from UFC. I don't have a better word for them than bootlickers who are like, well, see, there's nothing outside the UFC. Nothing at all. That's why it's amazing. That's why it's great. That's why you should never question this business's decisions ever again. And it's like, no, you're bringing in guys who are like 35 years old into a completely new meta of fighting that there is a period of acclimation that should be in there. And at 35, they just can't do that. So like, that's the problem. Like if the size and the pace actually overwhelms Musayev, then he becomes like this really uninteresting going forward signing. Unless he's fighting guys like that are way down the list. And like, I don't want that. I don't enjoy that. But yeah, I'm going to go with Musayev by decision here. He is the underdog, and I understand that he's debuting here, plus 130 to plus 140, and minus 160 to minus 172 for Oralbai. And I am fine with that. That makes sense, but I am going to go with the underdog, Musayev there. Nazim Sadikov versus Nicholas Mata. I really was excited when Mata got signed, but his run has been pretty disappointing. There is some wins recently, and he's putting something together, and he's with Extreme Couture, and I'm hoping that's fixing some of his problems. But I think just fundamentally a lot of what he got away with on the regional scene was a product of an athleticism advantage that he just does not have in the UFC. And getting pants by Trey Ogden is a really bad sign. There's a recklessness to him, an old school shoot-a-box style of him where, yes, he can grapple, yes, he can strike quite well, but like, he will also just do some dumb stuff, like some overly aggressive stuff at wrong times. And not like Oralbai, who's like bringing a constant sense of pressure and aggression to try to break you. It's just kind of like sporadically really aggressive, and he pays for it. And Sadikov is a pretty good fighter. He's quite well-rounded. He's a strong wrestler. He's got good power, good pop in his hands. He is a pretty good counter fighter, actually. Finds like decent counter openings, and like there will be those against Mata quite a bit. And I am taking him by TKO. That's just kind of all there is to it. It's going to be a good fight. Like I'm not getting a lot of mileage out of it as a fight to talk about in terms of breakdown or whatever. But it's going to be a fun action fight. Like it's excellent matchmaking, and I applaud it. And for betting odds wise, I will say Sadikov is a prohibitive favorite. He's like minus 420 to minus 500, plus 320 to plus 360. I think that's the largest favorite on the card. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that the largest favorite on this card should be Curtis Blades, whatever that number is. Actually, Oban Elliott is a bigger favorite. Okay, so second biggest margin of difference. Muhammad Naimov versus Bogdan Grad. This is really, really fun, but also really, really simple. Like, I am looking forward to this fight. I think it's going to be a war. I think anytime Grad gets in there, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. He is oral by in a nutshell in terms of like his philosophy of winning, which is to beat you with aggression and volume and wrestling. The problem for him, though, is that even at the regional scene, there were fights where his physicality didn't necessarily lose, but struggled. And the problem with that, the essential issue with that kind of thing is that at the regional scene, if your athleticism does not seem to be special, does not seem to be taking that next step, then you really are just a pace and volume kind of guy. And you have to have breakable opponents. And Naimov is not a particularly complex opponent. He is not a particularly smart opponent. But he is very, very physically adept. And I don't think that there's a moment ever where he's been broken by just raw pace and aggression. I could be wrong. But like looking back at his UFC losses to Felipe Lima, yes, pace played a role. But so did Felipe Lima's like actual like athletic game, particularly his speed, and also his like technical adaptability to the fight, which is something Grad does not have. Grad fights one way. Grad fights one way. It's one-way traffic. And at the end of the day, there's also that fight with Colin Anglem on Contender Series back in 2020. But Anglem is not Grad. Like his keys to victory are just not in any way Grad. So as much as I'm like saying that this is going to be like a really, really fun fight, I do think that there's going to be a very early, a very, very, very early clinch up, a very early car crash, essentially, where the fact that Naimov is a stronger, more brutal physical fighter just kind of sets the tone of the fight. And Grad's going to keep doing that. He's going to keep coming back for more, and that's why I have him getting TKO'd. But there just isn't the physicality to make that happen for him here. So, yeah, I've got to go with Naimov by TKO. Naimov is minus 250 to minus 280 as a favorite, plus 205 to plus 225. See, like, this is an example here. Like, I feel like this is a more clean-cut Naimov win than Sadikov beating Nicholas Mata. And it's not just because, well, I have them both finishing, so actually it wouldn't even be that. But it's like, Mata has, like, venues to try, variety, things to do, whereas Grad, it's very much going to be a one-note game. And I'm surprised he's not a bigger underdog, honestly. And then we have Sokyong Ko versus Oban Elliott. I'm going to go with Oban Elliott here. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a high level ceiling to Oban Elliott because I just don't think he's a good enough athlete, and he's a little bit too textbook. Kind of actually a lot like Khalil Roundtree in that way, although with more adaptability to him. There's not a lot of creativity to his game. Like, there is a very good boxing game. There is a solid clinch wrestling game. The fact that he went into the clinch repetitively with Preston Parsons and was not overwhelmed is really, really impressive. And he's very, very good. He's 27 years old. He's got time to, grow and so on. He's pretty big for the weight class, too, 6 foot tall, 72 inches, not much of a reach, but, he's big enough. And then for Ko, it feels like Ko's wins on the regional scene were just against bad fighters and guys who couldn't compete with him on a physical or size level. And he's not that big. Like, that's the problem, is you come to the UFC and it's like your level of athleticism is going to very much go downhill, unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying that he can't win. I'm not saying that he won't maybe surprise people, because there's a reasonably well-rounded game to him. He's reasonably powerful, hits decently hard, does a little bit of everything. But at the same time, it just feels like a lot of what got him through the regional scene is regional plus athleticism that isn't going to necessarily translate to the UFC. So, Oban Elliott by TKO. Also, there's the fact that I think all of his losses are by stoppage, which does worry me a little bit, because that does suggest that maybe there's not the greatest durability behind that. It's only 2 losses, but like, you've been knocked out by Sasa Palatnikov. That's not good. And also by Hansel Kim. And pretty early in those fights, not super early, but a minute 5 into the Kim fight, and then Palatnikov early in the second round. So I think it can come very quickly. And that is a general problem that will have to be sorted out. Like I said, Elliott is too big of a favorite to bet on, though, at this point. Minus 480 to minus 590. At Ko is plus 350 to 390. But it just does feel like Ko's in for I wouldn't say even a rude awakening, because he has lost, but a confirmation of the fact that you put together a reasonably good game here, kid, but it was based on athletic deltas that you're not going to have at the UFC level. And then we have Ismail Nardiev versus Iron Turtle Jung Young Park. Taking Park, he's the favorite, minus 180 to minus 205, plus 150 to plus 165 for Nardiev. I will go with Park by decision. Essentially, Nardiev is just not that good, and no beating Bruno Silva doesn't really change that. He's lost a couple of regional fights to guys who are not UFC caliber. His run in the UFC was problematic. He's not super deep in any regard. He's not particularly big for the weight class. He's not particularly physical for the weight class either. Like, that is the problem. Now, Park, a lot of the same things can be said. Park is not particularly big for the weight class. He's not particularly good athlete. But what Park does have is a very, very well-honed process and game, which is, I'm going to box pretty well, I'm going to jab well, I'm going to work in decent volume, I'm going to trigger together combinations, and also the directionality of my striking leads to my wrestling and my takedown game. I have a very strong top game with good ground and pound, with back takes, and with punishing work from top. And it means that there are a lot of people who will lose to a guy who is physically not on their level. Jung Young Park's entire UFC career has kind of been about that. But the guys who beat him are really, really big, for one thing. Andre Muniz, Gregory Rodriguez, or Fluffy Hernandez is not necessarily that big, but like, they're really, really top end. I'm going to deny you top position with my size and my own grappling potentials and my ability to get takedowns. And that's going to be a problem for you. And like, even the Muniz fight, I thought that he actually won, frankly. But otherwise, it's beating Brad Tavares, beating Albert Duraya, beating Dennis T. Lunan, Joseph Holmes. These don't mean much, but like, also beating Eric Enders, which does mean a fair bit, beating Tafon Nchukwu, Marc-Andre Barrio. These are guys who have more physical capability and more size, particularly in Nchukwu's case, but that he can overwhelm and just get the job done with his simple but very, very well created game. So Jung Young Park is the pick there and the bet. Melissa Mullins versus Daria Zheleznikova. This is a rematch from the regional scene. If you've never seen that fight, it essentially boils down to this: Zheleznikova outstriking Mullins quite easily at the beginning, working a decent jab, decent volume, decent variety, and getting the better of her, and then it ends up the clinch. Mullins puts her up against the fence, gets a takedown, and then very, very quickly things go badly on the ground for Zheleznikova, who throws up an armbar, which doesn't work, and then she just gets pounded. And I'm picking that to happen again, because it's been 2.5 years. I don't think Zheleznikova has predominantly changed. Now, is there a path to victory for Zheleznikova? Absolutely. She can keep it off the ground. The problem is that Zhelezhnikova's game does not really do that. She has the range game to theoretically be kind of Jacqueline Galvacanti type of fighter, but she inevitably does tend to crash into things, and that is the problem with her game, is that it sabotages itself to a certain degree. So I'm going with Mullins, but like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Zheleznikova make some good adjustments, keep the range, and do some things. She's 29 years old. She can learn some things. She's quite well situated for this weight class in terms of size. 5'9", 68 inches is a little bit weird, but 5'9", pretty big. 135 is definitely like, something she can handle. but she's gotta stop doing some of the things that she has done historically in almost every single fight to actually make this work. And the fact that she still to this date has not stopped doing those things is sort of a problem. And then in terms of betting odds, I will say Mullins is a bit too much of a favorite here at minus 260 to minus 295. So I'm staying away from this on a betting level. And plus 190 to plus 225 on Zhelezhnikova. So Arina Alexieva, Russian Ronda versus Claudia Segula, I think is how it's pronounced. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Please feel free to correct me. Well, we'll put it this way. The fight itself will correct me. These are the two women who have lost to Melissa Mullins in the UFC. Ironically, that's the through play here. And I'm going to go with Alexieva. Alexieva is not a well-structured fighter by any means, which actually kind of makes the Russian Ronda thing kind of work pretty well. Although, to be clear, she's not anywhere near as good as Ronda Rousey. I want to make that clear. We bash on Ronda Rousey a lot of the time, and I think that means that we tend to forget how good she was. And she was very good, and Alexieva is nowhere near that. But Alexieva has raw horsepower physicality for 135 that is very, very impressive. Everything is a mess technically. There is literally nothing that I think she does that you would teach anybody to do. But she does smash into people with a car crash. She does create a mauling, and she does overpower opponents. And I just think Segula, who is a more schooled fighter, but like herself is not a particularly great technician either, can just end up being overawed by that in essentially. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen Segula lose on the regional scene to Carolina Sobek by scarf hold arm lock. Like, you know, it's definitely on the table. And yeah, I think the issue with Segula is that all of her wins can be assigned by just people who are not very good. Like her best win on the regional scene is, I guess, a 3-0-1 Daria Rechel. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but like, who herself beat nobody who had fights. And I guess the other option would be, there's a 5-2 girl here. You think it's any good? Brenna Cardozo. Okay, her I do know, but like, yeah, she's a 9-5 fighter who does bare knuckle or modified rules fights. Like, it's kind of just a weird thing, like, that doesn't really work. I don't have faith. Like, that's what it comes down to, unfortunately. I would like to have faith. I would like to be excited about both of these ladies' long-term applications, but like, Alexieva, while she has the size and the raw physicality to be a really good fighter, she's not trained in any way correctly. And then on Segula's side of things, I just don't know. There's nothing about her that stands out other than, I guess, size? I guess like, she is big enough to be an atomweight. I guess that's going for it. But even that, I don't know. She's not, I don't know. She's 5'8", which is good enough height, but like, I don't know. She got pretty overpowered by Melissa Mullins, so like, I'm not going to be going for that terribly highly. Mullins and Alexieva are not the same fighter, but they do a lot of the same stuff. And again, betting odds are a little bit prohibitive here. Alexieva is minus 270 to minus 295. Segula is plus 210 to 225. Alexieva by submission is the pick. Tasha Ulanbekov versus Azat Maxim. I'm going to go with Ulanbekov here, and this fight should be higher up. Ulanbekov is, by the UFC's own rankings, a top 15 guy in the world. They got him at number 12, and you could argue he's perhaps even higher than that. He is a good wrestler, an excellent grappler, and not a bad striker. Like, it's not a good striker. There's nothing about his striking that like would function without the wrestling portion. But with the wrestling portion, it works pretty well. He hits decently hard with decently good form and can fight at a decent pace when he's required to and get the job done. And then with Maxim, the problem is that I've been unwilling to see him as a top end prospect, I guess, is the problem, because I just think fundamentally he fights in a way that doesn't really work at the UFC level. His regional ability was, I am super strong, super powerful. You don't want to get hit by me. You don't want to lock up with me. You don't want to wrestle with me. And at some point, those things are going to happen and I'm going to win. And at the UFC level, it's been a fight against Tyson Nam, which he arguably lost, and then a loss to Charles Johnson. And now, Charles Johnson's a very good fighter, and like Tyson Nam, I think, is like a sleeper fighter who's very, very hard to look good against. But it also was a fundamental, like, flyweight is a high output division. This is the division of Brandon Royval. This is the division of Matt Schnell. This is the division of Joshua Van. This is the division of Alexander Pantoja. And there's just not enough drive for Maxim to get that done. There's not enough activity. There's not enough. There's too much just like bully and make you accept that you're being bullied in a division where that doesn't really work. So I'm going to go with Ulanbekov to be a better technical wrestler. Probably not a better athlete, to be honest. Maxim is like a legitimate like horsepower guy. But at the same time, just doesn't do enough. And Ulanbekov, like I said, will scale his pace up to what needs to be happen. He's not a fundamentally high-paced fighter. I think if you let Ulanbekov have a fight where he just had to throw like 20, 25 punches around and just kind of like grind on you, he'd take that. He'd be happy with that. He is not Bogdan Grod. He is not who else am I thinking of here? I was talking Miktabek Oralbai. There you go. He's not Oralbai, he's not Grod, who like have to go hard, but he can do that. He can make that happen. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him here. Maxim has some value though at a plus 300 to plus 350 underdog. Like he is powerful, he is strong, he is a good wrestler in his own right. He does hit hard. Like all of the things that he bases his like winning formula on, like they are there. He's not deluding himself. It's just at the UFC, I think there's a little bit too lackluster of activity. Like it just needs to be more. And I don't know if he has the cardio to do that necessarily. So yeah, Ulanbekov is minus 395 to minus 500, which I'm not going to bet on in general, but you know it's bettable. And then Muhammad Usman versus Hamdi Abdelwahad. This is a coin flip fight. Hamdi Abdelwahad has a skill set that should result in being pretty good. Like he's an Olympic level wrestler. He likes to strike. He's pretty tough. He hits reasonably hard. His striking is bad, but I mean it's heavyweight. And but since the PE accusations, he just seems kind of like really, really flat. That fight with Jamal Pogues was terrible. But like at the same time, he could totally do the same thing to Usman and get a decision here. Like realistically, Usman is a fighter with all the physical talent that you could ask for. Realistically, like he's a powerful like guy, but like he is super stiff, super robotic, and doesn't do anything interesting at all. Like it is bad. I have yet to enjoy a Muhammad Usman fight in the UFC. Like it just does not exist. Like it doesn't matter if he's losing to Thomas Peterson or McParkin. It doesn't matter if he's beating Jake Collier or Junior Tafa. It's just like it's not fun. And the fact that he has lost to anybody that can theoretically outclinch him. Looking at you, Parkin. Looking at you, Peterson. It's a concern, but like I don't know. Like Abdelwahad is in this place where like. I want him to be good. I want him to be, you know, the building blocks are there. But, like, there's also the accusations that, like, everything he may have been, like, good at was just steroids. So, there you go. I'm going with Hamdi Abdelwahad by decision. I think he'll have enough, like, big moments in the fight to take it away from Usman, essentially, who, outside of, like, knocking people out, doesn't really have big moments. And it's heavyweight. Usman's a plus 123 to plus 142 favorite. Underdog, pardon me. Dog. And then minus 157 to minus 178 for Abdelwahad. So Abdelwahad is the pick, but I'm not betting on that guy at minus odds, like at any point. Like that's just all there is to it. Like you're gonna have to give me underdog odds for me to be interested in putting money on it. So, but I'm also not gonna bet on Usman because it's not a good fight. Let me put it this way: it could potentially be a really terrible fight. It could potentially be really, really cool. Like if Abdelwahad comes out and is like, you know what? No. I've been back in the gym. I've been getting there going. I'm back on the juice. And he just goes out there and throws Usman around. That'd be fun. That'd be cool. But I wouldn't pick that. I will not be watching this one live, so there'll be no Twitter commentary. If you follow me on Twitter or whatever, I will be doing a esports event for I'm blanking on the name of even the promotion. It is the Race Room Communities League, which is like a super league of like various esports like racing groups, and that'll be fun. Be doing that with Byron over on YouTube, and it'll be on the ESR channel, I do believe. So if you just search ESR and find the ESR racing community, you will find the live stream, I imagine. So that's enough of my nerdy stuff. Check out the links down below for social medias and everything, and particularly over on the Discord server, because this weekend we're doing an experiment to see how many people Byron can knock out in a row in Costa Rica, and that will be fun. I will see you guys after the fights.